Welcome to another episode of Entrepreneurship Unboxed, your front row seat to the stories, struggles, and secrets behind today's most innovative startups and entrepreneurs. I'm your host AJ, and today we have a guest who epitomizes the relentless pursuit of success. Erik Huberman, the serial entrepreneur and marketing expert behind the powerhouse visionary founder of Hawke Media, joins us to share his incredible journey from childhood hustler to leading one of the fastest growing marketing agencies in the United States of America. Get ready for a deep dive into the mind of a true innovator as Erik unveils the secrets behind his success, the lessons from his failures, and the strategies that can transform your business. Let's unbox the entrepreneurial spirit with Erik Huberman. Welcome to the show, Erik. Give us the 60-second backstory on Hawke Media. How'd you get the idea, and what was your career before taking the entrepreneurial leap?
I'm almost always been an entrepreneur. It was just I grew up, my dad was an entrepreneur, my grandfather, I always thought I'd be running businesses. So the only jobs I took were really to learn, but worked in college. I worked in a real estate office. I sold kitchen knives. And then I actually started a business, which was storm drain filtering. And then I went into real estate as a commercial agent, figuring I would make some money and then start building my own real estate. That was 2008. That fell apart. And then I ended up launching 3 different digital businesses. First was a music company, then 2 different fashion brands. Sold the 2 fashion brands, started advising and consulting for a lot of different companies. Saw there was a huge need for someone that actually knew what they were doing in marketing, but was easy to work with. And so under that, started building a team, and that became Hawke Media. So crazy path, but here we are. 10 years ago is when that started.
Erik, your entrepreneurial journey started at a young age. What sparked that drive, and how did those early experiences shape your approach to business?
Yeah, it was honestly as simple as, so it was a couple of things. One, my dad taught me math and played games with money. So he'd be like, okay, I have 2 quarters and a dime and a nickel. How much money do I have? And we'd go, 65 cents. It was how fast could we do mental math? And then I got excited about the idea of saving up money for the next dollar bill. So saving enough money for a $1 bill, then saving enough money for a $5 bill, and then a $10 bill, and 20 and 50 and 100. And I loved saving. So then I started trying to figure out how to make money faster than just finding coins on the street or in our couch. How could I actually make money? I didn't have an allowance at that time. And so I started trying to sell my parents' stuff door to door to try to figure out how I could make money. And just because I liked the idea of building. And then when I was 8, I wanted to get an electric guitar. And I asked my dad, I was like, Dad, I need to get an electric guitar. And he said, well, you better get a fucking job. Okay. And so I started selling lemonade. That did not make enough money. So I started buying and selling these Beanie Babies that were really popular back then and made a lot of money, made a few $1,000s as an 8-year-old buying and selling Beanie Babies. And
Wow.
that still for the reason of I wanted to be a musician and play guitar. But it stuck with me that a few years later, when I realized I wasn't that good of a musician, I was pretty good at this business thing and I liked making money. So that's really what set me off on it.
Hawke Media was born out of a vision to make great marketing accessible to all. Can you share some success stories where you've empowered smaller businesses to compete with the big players?
Yeah, that's our entire ethos. So it's every company that works with us. The idea here is we're one of the top partners to Google, to Facebook, to Klaviyo, to Shopify, to TikTok, et cetera. We have our own proprietary AI system that's second to none on predictive analytics. We have a rock star team of people that have worked with, name a big brand, Nike, Unilever, Estee Lauder, P&G, there's a huge Red Bull, Verizon, HP. We work with so many big companies. And we also work with a lot of small and medium businesses and make ourselves cost effective and affordable for those companies to be able to work with us. So you have some of the best talent networks, platforms, technology working not only with the big brands, but with the small and medium guys, because I always thought it was ridiculous that you couldn't do that. And that's how we built the business.
As Hawke Media expanded, you've managed to maintain a culture of empowerment and autonomy. What strategies have you used to cultivate this environment?
Yeah, I think maintaining culture is actually a fallacy to me. I think that it's the same idea as maintaining your age. And my partner came up with this metaphor that I always thought was really right. We talk about, how great high school, great or bad, whatever high school was. And there was this period of time when you were in high school. Then there's a period of time when you're in college. And there's a period of time when you're in your 20s, your 30s, whatever. Your life changes. Your priorities change. The way you operate changes. I loved college, but I wouldn't want to be living that life right now And it's the same thing for a company. Like we had a great time when it was 7 people around one conference table in a room the size of my own office. But now it's a lot bigger, a lot more to manage, and it's got a different culture, but it's a culture that works for it now. And I think that that's important to realize is you don't maintain culture. You actually have to adapt with the culture that's needed for the environment you're in. And that's been where we really focus is like, where do we need to be now to achieve what we want to achieve next?
In your quest for a marketing leader, what qualities are you looking for? And how do they fit into Hawke Media's dynamic growth?
Yeah, you need to, number one, and it's probably the biggest one, is you need to be self-motivated and curious. Like if you're coming to like just punch a time clock and do a job, you're probably going to be miserable with us because it is a lot of work. It's volatile. We've had people that have left the company or we've let go that we've stayed in touch with. And we're like, how is it? They're like, well, I'm working way less, and it's like, yeah, it's a lot of work to work at Hawke. And if you don't like that, it's not good. I always say one of my interview questions is, would you rather be bored or overwhelmed? And different people would rather be bored or overwhelmed. And if you wouldn't rather be overwhelmed, like I'm miserable bored. It drives me nuts. I'll go break something. Like, do not put me in a place where I'm going to be bored. But overwhelmed, I kind of thrive in, where it's like there's so much going on. I got to get on top of everything and I got to like work hard. Like I like that there's always something happening. And so attracting those types of people is really important because that's what it takes to succeed in marketing, in my opinion. You've got to be on top of it all the time. You've got to have a lot going on. You've got to want that. You've got to be constantly looking for something, because if you're the type of person to just check the box and move on and call it a day and end your day early, you're not going to succeed because there's infinite opportunity cost in marketing and there's always more to do. And so that's really the number one thing. As far as marketing tactics, we can teach that. Like it's not rocket science. It's not that complicated. We can teach best practices. We can coach people up on how to do the things we need them to do, as long as they're smart, hardworking, and really like to, drive.
So it means that you have to have that creativity mindset.
I actually wouldn't even say it's creative mindset. I'd say that like analytical people do great with us too in the right roles. So it could be either or both. It's really more of inquisitive than creative. It's really more about trying to understand, which again, people think of creative as abstract, where it's like a painter, a musician, that kind of thing, where it's like analytical people, scientists, well, in this space, as long as they're proactive.
You've emphasized the importance of adaptability. Can you give us examples of how Hawke Media has pivoted to take advantage of new opportunities?
Yeah, it's constant. Adaptability, like our industry is changing all the time. And what we did 10 years ago cannot be what we're doing now. And so the ability to change course, to try new things, to bring in new softwares, to leverage AI, to do all these things to be the thing, be the best at what we do is super important. And human nature does not lead to that. People like being comfortable. People like being in the same space. They want consistency. It's why this whole idea of AI taking jobs is so scary to people, because it means that you might have to learn something new. It means that you might have to change what you're doing. There's no room for that at Hawke. You've got to be ready to change, because the tools, the processes, the systems, everything's changing all the time. And you've got to be comfortable with that. You've got to almost embrace it, because if not, you're going to be miserable.
You chose to reinvest in Hawke Media instead of exiting. What went into that decision, and how has it shaped the company's trajectory?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. It's like things are going to change all the time. If you're not changing, you're just going to die. So like, if I want to continue doing this, I've got to adapt. It's not really an option or a desire. It's a necessity. You have to. Yeah.
How do you approach identifying new ventures? And what role does data play in your strategic decisions?
Yeah, I would say, in terms of investing, we have a whole process there. But in terms of my own new ventures, I think the critical part is not identifying new ones. It's ignoring enough of them. Meaning like there's always 100 things an ADD entrepreneur wants to get into. And there's a billion things I want to do. And figuring out what I should prioritize and what I should actually focus on is actually more of the challenge, and making sure that it's actually core to what we're trying to do with the vision of the business and how we're growing it. As far as the investment side, we're looking for great new innovations in software and technology that are going to either help us do our job more efficiently, replace what we do, or help it perform better. Like that's what we want. So it's all sorts of tools and tactics and softwares that are constantly innovating in our space that we want to be a partner in and invest in.
What lessons have you learned from established firms like the Big Four? And how have you adapted these insights to Hawke Media?
Yeah, I don't know if I've learned it, but I think it's a good lesson to be taught. Like everybody has the perception of a job and the reality of running a fund. The hard part is raising the money for a fund. getting a bunch of rich people to say, I trust you with my money, even though I'm the one that made my money, to invest my money well and better than I will with this chunk of money. And you're going to go make me money. It's a really hard pitch and a hard thing to do. And so thankfully we were able to accomplish it. And I put a lot of our own money up, et cetera. But that's been the biggest thing. Other than that, like the nice thing is we're operators too. So the thing that I learned about like trusting other venture funds, it's like, it is really hard for me to understand how these generalist venture funds actually pick good deals when they're not in the weeds seeing what's happening in the market. We know how the market's working right now, what people buy. We can really test these softwares, and it's still very, very hard to pick winners. And we've thankfully been successful on an average basis, but we've picked losers too. And it's like, it's hard to, even with all the strategic advantages we have to pick them better than any other venture fund in our space, it's still hard. So as an asset class, I worry about it. But for what we're doing, I'm really excited because we've proven out that you're also competing against all the people that can't do what we can do. And now we've proven out that we know how to pick great companies too. And it's been, positive.
When starting Hawke Media, you faced challenges as an e-commerce entrepreneur finding quality marketing talent. How did those experiences shape Hawke Media's unique value proposition?
Yeah, it was more, it wasn't finding talent, it's vetting talent, I think is the hard part. There's people always applying to jobs. There's no shortage of job applications. It's more understanding, should I hire this person? And like what I see is, it's similar for me hiring a CTO to build technology. I don't know how to build technology, so how do I vet a CTO? And it's really hard to vet someone when you don't know how to do that job. I know how to do marketing. I can talk to a marketer all day and be like, and quickly go, you're smart, you're not. And so it's really easy for me to hire marketers. When brands try to hire marketers and they're not marketing people themselves, they stumble over a bunch of crap. Well, because marketers are great salespeople generally too, and they'll overhype what they can do. And so that's really where this business came from, was seeing that between internal marketers and agencies, 99% of them are full of shit and don't know what they're doing. And the few that are good are really hard to work with. And that's where the mission came from. I wanted to create an environment where we were easy to work with, but the best at what we did. And that's really what we've built at this point.
What insights have you taken from larger service businesses like the Big Four? And how have you adapted these to suit Hawke Media's growth? Yeah,
it's a few things. Just knowing, my favorite thing when I started Hawke was that service businesses are not scalable. Yeah. I'm like, all that to Deloitte, EY, PwC, Accenture. Like, what are you talking about? Like, these are people that would say this to me, are people that wish they had one of those companies. So it's like, they're definitely scalable. Now, how do they scale? What do they do? And like watching, and even simple numbers, like how much revenue do they produce per head? So that I know that if you can make this much money per head on top of your people, you can have enough money to run a business. It's things like that just understanding how they build those businesses and their metrics and what they look at has definitely helped me develop mine.
Reflecting on your personal growth, what new beliefs or habits have most improved your life in recent years?
Health. Eating healthy, working out, taking care of yourself physically is big because you just have way more resilience. Like running a business is, I've heard all different. It's chewing glass, it's eating shit, it's whatever you want to put it, but it's hard. Like running a business is hard. And so the game is sort of self-retention. How do you make it sustainable for you when you're getting just punched in the face over and over again? And one of those things is being very physically healthy so that your resilience, your ability to deal with stress is so much higher that I've noticed when I go through bouts of especially, frankly, I lift weights too for the longevity side, but like the cardio side is really where you get that resilience. And what I notice is when I go through periods of like, I'm really doing a good job of running and biking and swimming, I'll deal with the same problem and handle it way better than when I take my foot off that and don't work out as hard. Like, it's like your ability to manage that just goes through the roof when you can take care of yourself.
When you were 16 and had the experience of being underpaid at the health food store job, you realized the importance of not relying on others to determine your future. How did that specific job experience shape your views on employee compensation? And how did you structure salaries at Hawke Media?
Great question. I actually have not been asked that. I try to set our compensation up as objectively as possible. So it's your job and your comp is on you. As much as I can create upside and bonus, I'll pay the base salary that I can help them commit to. But then from there, I try to create the upside. Just it's on them. You want to manage more clients, you want to grow your clients, you want to manage more money, you can make more money. Like you control your destiny. It's not about my opinion of you. And frankly, when we do have jobs that aren't that way, I try to set it up as objectively as possible. Because what I saw was, if it's left to opinion, I can be as wrong as that same boss. Like, I can think that this person's doing the job and it's this person. Like, I don't think that I'm, omnipresent and know everything that's going on. I want to have the metrics in front of me, and I want to make it as objective as possible.
You talked about your time in college and the social skills you had to develop coming from a small high school. How did that transition shape your ability to network, build relationships, and ultimately grow your business ventures?
You guys did your research. I wonder where I've definitely talked about it. But yeah, no, I had a graduating class of 11 in high school and then a freshman class in college of 8,000. So I realized that my social aptitude was not that as high as I thought it was, but I was always extroverted. So the nice thing was I wasn't shy. I just didn't know social norms to the level I should. And so kind of jumped into the deep end and figured it out and realized what an awkward, weird kid I was freshman year, and got better and better. My friends that I met freshman, sophomore year still laugh about like me and how much I changed throughout college and the way I carried myself.
Can you share an example of a pivotal connection or opportunity that arose from your improved networking skills during college?
Frankly, professional connections, none of them really came out of college. I think I have a few, but nothing very deep on the professional side, and still close friends with a lot of people from college. But it was more, again, the ability to just hang in a room and understand how to be social. Like, to this day now, like, I am the networker of the company. So like, my job for the past decade has been to be that person. And I was not that person pre-college, and I was that person coming out of college.
When you decided to turn down the initial offer to sell Hawke Media, what were the key factors you considered?
It was pretty simple. Am I done? Because I assumed the big thing is, when I turn down an offer to sell a company, I assume it'll be 10 years before I get another, because you could end up in a recession and then a recovery, and it might be 10 years before I ever see that kind of money again. So the decision was, am I still good for another 10 years? And am I okay walking away from this? Am I more excited to stick with it? Do I think my opportunity is greater having this and sticking with it and doing what I'm doing? Or is it better taking the money and leaving? And I believed that it was better to stay with it.
How do you continue to balance the drive for growth with maintaining a sustainable work-life harmony for yourself and your team?
Harmony and not balance. That's the distinction. So, I still work as hard now as I probably did when I started, or close to it, but I make sure that it all blends together. So, I like weekends. I have a daughter now. I want to spend time with my daughter. I wake up with her, play with her in the morning. When she goes down for a nap, I usually spend a little time working. When she goes to sleep at 7, I might go back to work, but I get that period of like bedtime and stuff with her. So it's just finding ways that it all works together versus like it always being at odds is, I think, a big part of it. Finding ways to travel for fun that also include work, finding ways that everything I do can actually benefit the company in some way, whether it's I'm going on a trip and I'm going to film content to help drive Hawke or whatever it is, just making sure that like it's not about separating the two. It's more about how can I always be benefiting both so that it's, again, sustainable.
You mentioned your fascination with the music industry's inability to adapt to technological disruptions. How have you applied that lens of constant adaptation to your own businesses?
What we talked about, it's that, I firmly believe that if you're not constantly changing and adapting, you're dead. That's where the adaptability conversation came from. And so, for us, it's building Hawke AI. It's investing in all these technologies on the software side. It's constantly, challenging our team to find new ways to innovate. It's making sure that we stay on top of that curve.
What emerging technologies do you see as potential disruptors in the marketing industry, and how are you preparing Hawke Media to stay ahead?
It's AI, yeah. It's a Hawke AI. Like, that's why we built it. We spent 8 years building it because we knew this day was coming.
Wow, you guys were building it for a while then. Yeah. 8 years.
Yeah, 8 years, yeah. And so it's digesting 8,000 companies, marketing, media, and revenue data in real time, educating AI on what's happening in the market so it can look at an individual company, go, this is exactly what's wrong and where the opportunity is, and tell a CMO, these are the things you need to fix to do better. And so nobody else has that. We built it. It's done. It's running. We have a couple thousand companies using it. We sent the offer letter to hire a CEO. So hopefully we'll be announcing a new CEO of that shortly. So that company will be off to the races, but we're spinning it out. It's been an internal tool for a while. Now we're going to actually spin it out and create a company around it.
Can you share a specific example from your entrepreneurial journey where you had to dig deep and push through a difficult period?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Some of the stuff I can't share for a variety of reasons, but there's a couple years ago, I had a bunch of executives that weren't doing what I needed them to do. I'm kind of glazing over this, but the company wasn't performing like I needed it to. And there were tons of personal things happening. We were about to have a baby. My dad had passed away. My mom had some stuff. It was like all at once. And this is what I mean by being a business owner. You just sometimes just everything will hit you at once. And I think the most important thing is to remember a few things. The number one thing that helped me through that was a random stupid video of like Tom Hanks talking about this too shall pass, because you got to remember that there's going to be tough times and there's going to be good times. And both will pass. You're going to have great times and those will fall away, and you'll have tough times. And you're going to have tough times and that will pass, and you have good times. And you have to remember that it won't last forever. None of it. And so that's super important to get you through, because then you look up and you go, like, that tough time I'm speaking of was over 2 years ago now. It's like so much has happened since then, and it was fine. But at the time, I thought the world was going to end. So it's really important to not have that perspective and to really be able to grit through it. And I think, honestly, I think that's really it. And then the other one that I remind myself all the time is work like most won't, so you can live like most can't. And to really keep perspective and gratitude. And gratitude gets used a little too much, in my opinion. But whatever it is, just celebrating the fact that you get to do cool shit. And I mean this for anyone, because I'm sorry. And where are you based, by the way? Where do you live?
Right now, I'm in Morocco, though.
Morocco. Okay. I haven't been. I really want to get to Morocco. But I got to say, from what I know about Americans, there is very few people in this country that don't live better than almost everybody else in the world. And so if you're just born in the US, by nature, you're already lucky. Celebrate it. Stop bitching, stop complaining, because your brain is a muscle, and what you feed and what you exercise is what it produces. And so this is what I learned with that craziness I went through 2 years ago. I had never experienced anxiety. For the first time, I was trying to understand what this feeling was, literally. And I'm explaining it to my wife. And my wife goes, "You mean you're anxious?" I'm like, "That." And she's like, "You've never had anxiety? What do you mean?" Like, I was like, "It sucks." She's like, "Yeah, of course it sucks. But like, you've never had anxiety? You're 35 years old. What are you talking about?" Yeah. And what was interesting about it is, knowing that it's like, and now, so I've spent the past 2 years, and it happened a lot faster than this, but I really have exercising the part of my brain to get rid of it. Because I'm like, I want to go back to what I was. I don't want to be anxious. The hell's the point of it? Anxiety doesn't help anyone. And how do you do that? You really emphasize to a way that feels forced the wins. I mean, celebrate tying your shoes. I don't care what it is. Just celebrate everything all the time. Celebrate every birthday, every good dinner, every little trip, every good evening, every good day, every little win, every good podcast interview. Celebrate it. Get excited about it. And at first, it will feel forced, and it will be forced. But what ends up happening is your brain can't tell the difference. You end up teaching your brain to work that way. And it actually ends up fighting off all the other shit you deal with. And so you see this, I'm just very sensitive to the idea of like what you see on social media these days, where everybody has now trained themselves to look for bad, to complain, to be negative. And it's like, you do that too much and you're going to live a negative life. Like the outcome's the outcome. I'm sorry, but there's a lot more luck involved in life than we all give it credit for. Like if you're working hard enough and you're smart enough, you're going to be some level of successful in this world. And I've seen that over and over again. But how successful is luck? So if we have to understand that that's luck, then like you can wake up one way or the other. You can wake up positive or negative. It's way nicer to wake up positive as someone that's had both sides. But just focus. And again, it really does just take forcing it. And now, because I think like I kind of created I never had those wires in my brains for anxiety, and now they exist. Once in a while, I'll catch myself like freaking out about the future that doesn't even exist, which is where anxiety comes from. I'll be like, God, stop it. What's happening good right now? And I force myself to go through my head and go, this is positive, this is good, this is great, this is awesome, this is awesome. And then all of a sudden you feel better. Like, oh God, go figure. It's all internal. It's all forced. And so that has been the biggest part of like going through challenges that I've learned is like, you got to just focus on all the good that you have. And by the way, Jeff Bezos can complain about his day.
Yeah.
And other people relative will go, fuck you, but he has just as much stress as anyone else. It's just a different level. And vice versa, you could have nothing to lose and still find a way to stress. So it's like this balance of like, just know that everybody deals with their stressors. It's how you manage it. And I'm sorry, like one of my biggest lessons was when I was 17, I went and taught school in India. You're interacting with some of the poorest people in the world, and they're happy. So it's like, I'm sorry, like that's where I come back to the US, and anyone that complains to me, like, you just know. And I'm not talking about myself. I'm a very fortunate individual. I'm not comparing myself to the people that are struggling here. I'm talking about I've experienced and been around people that truly struggle a lot more than anyone here and find a way to be happy.
Absolutely. Having those kinds of experiences really humbles you. It makes you appreciate what you have and not take things for granted.
And it's positive. It's a good thing. It's a good thing that we can be happy and it's not all external.
You emphasize the importance of a data-driven approach in marketing. Can you provide some examples of how companies misinterpret data and what strategies you recommend to strike the right balance?
Good question. So number one, the data-driven approach, the number one thing people forget is that there's a sales cycle or purchase cycle, meaning like from the time someone is introduced to your company to the time they buy, there's a time period. And it's usually 3 weeks to 3 months. Like just assume it's a month until you can actually get the data on what your sales cycle is. And so when you're measuring marketing, you need to be measuring over the course of that sales cycle, because after a month, you've only seen half of the sales that will come from that marketing effort. So it's not accurate to be like, what did I spend today? What did I make today? What did I spend this week? What did I make this week? Which is what all these digital marketers fall into. And it's just a horrible way to look at your marketing. So that's the number one thing I would shy people away from. And then in terms of striking the balance, it really is an art and a science. Like in that case, you can't really, it's really hard to show exactly what these campaigns drove because the tracking doesn't work that well anymore. There's not, with the change in cookies on iOS and stuff, it's just not perfect tracking it this day. And also, like someone might have not clicked your ad. They might have seen it, or they may have seen it at someone else's, or someone saw your ad and then told someone else. Like there's never a perfect science to measuring marketing. There has to be an art to the idea that you have a great product or service, you're reaching the type of person that would buy it, and that has to work for your business to succeed. So make sure your business model supports all that.
How do you balance the intensity of running a fast-growing business with maintaining a fun, lighthearted work culture at Hawke Media?
Got it. Honestly, I think growth is way more fun than not. So I would say that when you're not growing, that's when it's hard to maintain the lightheartedness, because that's when things are hard. Yeah. When you're growing, it's really easy, honestly. And that's why one main reason why I'm so motivated by growth is because then you can maintain that lightheartedness. You can have fun because you're growing and building and you're able to see new things. You're not doing the same thing every day. People can enjoy that. And so growth is really important for the success of a business. Maintaining is where you start losing.
As Hawke Media continues to grow and expand, what are some of the key challenges you anticipate, and how are you preparing your team to scale successfully?
Yeah, it still goes to the Hawke AI. Like I think AI and technology is going to continue to replace some of what we do, optimize what we do. And so leveraging it is really where we continue to.
What was the impetus behind the collaboration with Microsoft and LinkedIn Learning, and how did the opportunity come about?
I think it was my book, The Hawke Method. I think they came across my book and they asked me to be a thought leader on the marketing side, and they needed someone to create content with. That was pretty straightforward. And also their studios are next to where my mom lives. So I got to go spend a couple days with my mom while I recorded at their studios. So it's fun.
What are some of the key insights and frameworks from the Hawke Method that you'll be bringing to the LinkedIn Learning course?
Yeah, so we talk about the 3 pillars of marketing: awareness, nurturing, and trust. And awareness is how you let people know your brand exists. Nurturing is what you do. We talked about the sales cycle, through that sales cycle to get them to convert, as well as post-purchase coming back. And then trust is how you get like third-party validation and build trust with your potential customers. That LinkedIn Learning was all about nurturing. So it was basically breaking down how nurturing works and really getting into the details.
What are some of the unique challenges and opportunities you see in translating your real-world experience into an effective digital learning experience?
I mean, I think it's all the same. Like marketing in general, I always talk about is just sales from one to many. So individual conversations. This is a great example. I was talking to my social media manager and it wasn't clicking on the content I wanted to create. And I kept saying, and finally, this is where it clicked. I was like, I want you to take what you're saying on social and just go say it to someone else in the office. And if you feel like it feels right, like you would say that, then post it. But if you feel like they would look at you and go, what'd you just say? And I feel that way, like people are conversational. It's the same thing with emails. Like, God damn it. When people send these prospecting emails that look like prospecting emails, like, does anyone answer this? Because like, I would never email you like this. My email is like, hey man, what's up? I wanted to talk to you real quick. When's a good time to jump on the phone? That's my email. Not,
Wow.
we've worked with 5,000 companies and we've grown over this and with that. And here's other stats. Here's a hyperlink to a case study. If anyone ever sent me an email like that, I'm like, what the fuck is this? I don't have time to click your links. Who are you? Like, just talk to me. And it's like, it is so interesting that people don't get that. And I love the question, because it's like, we just had this conversation where we were posting on social media, and it was like, we were talking about, like, we have a TV show right now with Cedric the Entertainer and Anthony Anderson.
Yeah, congratulations on that one. I see the post though. Congratulations.
Yeah. And so those posts that you saw started with, what was it? It's like, catch us at 5 p.m. Pacific on A&E to see me hanging out with Cedric the Entertainer and Anthony Anderson, and watch how we teach them about marketing. And you can find out more about what we do, brands, at hawkemedia.com. And I was like, could you imagine if I walked into a room and said that? Like, Erik, what the hell did you just say? I'm like, no, just like, hey, check this out. We're going to be on TV with these two. You can see it on Hulu. Super excited. You find out more about the stuff we do. Like, got it. Super straightforward. How I communicate. And it's all communication. And it's like, people, like, it's a funny thing that I think school does do this to people, because it's where I didn't do good in school, or do well, excuse me, is when they put you into these frameworks of, like, an essay has to have 5 paragraphs with a, thesis statement and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, nobody writes that way. Nobody communicates that way. I not failed, but I had to get a B in business communication, and she gave me a C just so I had to take it again. I got a C in business communication. I think I've done pretty well in business communication. Like, the reason was I refused to do it her way, because she would tell me to send 2-page emails as part of it. Like, this is what an email should look like. I'm like, I've worked in a couple jobs in corporate America. I was a junior or senior already. Like, I've worked in a couple corporate jobs already. No one sends emails like this. If anyone sent me an email like this, it'd be like, delete. They can follow up if it's important, because I have no idea what the hell that just said, but I'm not spending 15 minutes reading your damn email. So it's those kind of things that they're taught in school or whatever it is that people don't realize. Like, no. This is simple. What would you say? Go say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Erik, school teaches us so many things that don't always apply in real life, but connecting with people authentically, like you do, really matters. When you send a straightforward email, people appreciate it. You're not wasting their time with fluff, just getting straight to the point. What book or books are you giving most as a gift, and why? What are 1 or 3 books you read that influenced your life?
I think that's a loaded question. I give my book to anyone that wants it, because people ask me, hey, I need to pick your brain on marketing. I'm like, start here. But yeah, that is it. I mean, if I'm going to give someone a book, it's usually my own, not because it's conceited, but I have tons of them and I like to give them out. That was the reason for it. I wanted to demystify marketing and make it simple, and that's what we did in the book.
Can you recall a moment when a failure, either yours or your parents or friends, unexpectedly set the stage for a future success? What is the story behind your favorite failure, and how did it become a pivotal moment in your career?
Yeah, that's the thing, is I never think of anything as failure, because, I mean, the good example for me is I got out of college and I went into real estate 1 week before the entire banking industry in the US collapsed. And it was the worst time to be in the real estate industry since the Great Depression. And so that's maybe failure, except for it pushed me into an industry I love way more, that I was way more successful in than I probably would have been in real estate. And understanding what I'm passionate about, it was a blessing. And I didn't even think of it as a failure then. I was frustrated it wasn't working faster. But in hindsight, like, I grinded my butt off for a year in real estate, which taught me how to work without any payoff. Because that year I made $350. And I worked 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day. I was the one that opened the office and closed the office. And this is where it's good having a hardworking dad. I called my dad and I was like, Dad, I'm getting in the office every day at 6 a.m. and opening the office. I'm closing it at 7. I'm the one that's locking the door. And he goes, 6 a.m.? I'm like, yeah. He goes, what's wrong with 5 a.m.? So that was a chip on my shoulder, was a, dad that pushed me. And, having that experience, like, it was huge. So, as you said, failure to success. Yeah, in a vacuum, that's a failure. I worked for a year in real estate. I made $350. That's a failure. Didn't sell anything, just, had a bunch of listings, but but that's the funny thing is I can call it a failure. It goes back to the mindset of positive, negative. I think of it as success because I was able to sign $35 million in listings as a 22-year-old. And if it had been a better market, I would have been a millionaire at 22.
Definitely.
When the economy crashed, there wasn't nobody was buying anything in 2009 and I couldn't do anything. Now, I'm not one to give away my power and be the victim of the situation, but when I look at that, I don't think of myself as a failure at all, because I'm like, yeah, I did everything I could in the situation I had and everything I knew, and the cards were dealt. And so I worked hard. I think I played it pretty smart. I had every opportunity, and the end of the day, the economy was against me in a very big way. And so I look at that in a lot of different ways. Now, do I make mistakes all the time? Learn quickly and move on. I don't think of it as a failure. I think that's a very absolute thing, versus mistake is like, yeah, we all make mistakes every day. Move through it, fix it, move on.
Reflecting on the past 5 years, what new belief or habit have you adopted that has significantly transformed your life and work? How has this change impacted your day-to-day actions and long-term goals?
Yeah, again, I've just progressively gotten more and more focused on health. Like, I've always been active. I've always been, an active person, but my diet, I stopped drinking 4 years ago just because I didn't want to deal with hangovers and the health consequences. I stopped drinking caffeine for the same reasons. I stopped with added sugar about 6 months ago. And that was the biggest shift, like feeling wise. I looked more and more. I got a trainer 3 years ago. I started signing up for other things. Like, I train 3 days a week with a trainer, but then I signed up for more cardio driven things like a Spartan race and a 5K or 10K or a marathon, whatever, just to keep me motivated to do things. So I signed up for it. I have my first triathlon coming up in August. Never tried. So I've never road biked. So I had to go get a road bike and just figure it out. And I'm like, and figure out how to swim properly, because I can swim, but not race. So, just pushing myself physically has been a big thing. And I realized this because even when I went through like the tough time 2 years ago, I talked about having stuff that you're achieving outside of work is amazing. Because when you it's not your entire life. Like, you're going to miss, you're going to, have problems at work. You're going to not hit the goals you want. You're going to if you're trying to achieve. If you're just trying to sit around, then sure, you're not going to have much. But if you're really achiever, you're going to have disappointing days, months, years. And to have other things you can latch onto that you still feel that win and that achievement, at least for me, is huge. I am an achievement junkie. I want to achieve things. And so that, even most recently, I took a blood test in early December, realized I was too high on sugar and doing some other things wrong. I was like, I'm going to go cut 10 pounds of body fat. I'm going to stop having sugar. And we're going to see it. And I, did my blood test, whatever it was, a month ago, and I achieved it. And it was like, that feeling got me so more motivated to do more. And that's the part that I've really learned, especially the past 5 years. It is really, 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 really easy to work really hard and get up early and grind when you're winning. And it is really, 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 really hard when you're losing. So when you talk about like Mark Wahlberg, who up at 4 a.m. and working out and this and that and this, or Dwayne Johnson and all these people, it's like, they're hard workers, don't get me wrong, but that energy is easy to find when you just feel that win, which again is all mental, which means you can teach yourself to feel that win. You don't have to be a billionaire to feel that win. There are many people that get up every morning excited that are not making billions of dollars. There's plenty of them. And so getting in that mindset and finding a way to maintain that mindset, whatever it takes for you, for me, it's achievement. So knowing that my health got really, like, I went from pre-diabetic to perfect sugar levels, like top of my age in 6 months of working out and eating healthy. So it's like, you can turn that stuff around and do that stuff. You just have to focus on it and do it. And knowing that, having other things you're trying to achieve that means something. I take piano lessons now, never learned to play piano. So I'm learning how to play piano. It was, my goal for this year was to learn to play piano and to do a triathlon. So I'm doing both. And then I'm going to set new ones. When I achieve those, who knows what those will be, but it's keeping those on in the horizon and working towards something. And then the last thing, having some sort of celebration always. Like, for me, that's usually travel. Travel is really the way I celebrate. And so it's having a trip on the books coming up always that I can know it. That's, even if it's months away, knowing that that's coming, and it's a point where I get to take a breath, go enjoy my family, go celebrate the fact. And I love to travel. So that's a big one. So, sort of, how do you put, manifesting what you want, controlling your life and constructing your life in a way that works for you. I think it's really important to be conscious of that.
Imagine you have the chance to put up a billboard in the heart of Times Square with a message for millions to see. What would your message be, and what do you hope people take away from it?
Again, if I was going to send a message out to the world, it's to reflect on all the good things about life. I just think we're in a time right now where everybody is so miserable and it's self-inflicted. The economy is not that bad. And this show is going to go live and I'm going to get hate mail. I know it, but it's how it goes. Like, we're in a time where, statistically, we have less poverty in the world than we've ever had, more access to water. People have more opportunity. Like, this whole AI craze is an opportunity for everybody to work efficiently and find ways to do more with less and actually capture that. And so many people are choosing to sit on Instagram and be miserable about why everyone else has what they want and they can't have it. And it's like, you could look up and go really capture a lot of what life has to offer and the opportunities everywhere, but it's not going to come to you. You got to go take it. And that some form of that message where it's like, because when you're positive, then you start looking, it's the, sort of rule of attraction. I don't really believe in the spiritual side of this. I just believe in the practical side of, like, when you're looking for opportunity and you're excited about life, you are proactive, you jump into things, you say yes to things. When you're miserable, you attract other miserable people and you stay miserable. So you got to kind of force your way out of your own funk. And I feel old saying this because I feel like every generation says this, but I'm worried about the next generation because I feel like they've been taught to just think that the whole world's against them. And I was taught to work my ass off and I can make something of myself. And by the way, I still believe that opportunity is just as great as it ever was. And by the way, I had plenty of friends when I started 15 years ago saying that the boomers took all the good jobs already and there's no opportunity for millennials. And it was a great recession. I graduated in 2008. It's the worst recession since the Great Depression. And that, my view, is there's plenty of opportunity. Now the economy is a lot better than it was in 2008. And I'm hearing that there's no opportunity. It's like, stop it. Like, there's so much. And
it means that you don't limit yourself.
Correct. And by the way, this is the biggest lesson. Let's say they're right. Let's say that it is harder out there. Let's take the one statistic everyone points to, which is houses are twice as expensive compared to wage growth. Let's say it is a lot harder to afford things than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. What are you going to do about it? You can bitch about it or go make some money. Go figure it out. Or you can throw your hands up, blame the world for your problems and never make any progress. And you'll be like, frankly, a majority of the world. Or go figure out what you can do about it, make some moves and, act accordingly, knowing that it is a little harder now than it was. Maybe. I don't know if I agree with that, but there are a couple statistics pointing that way. So if that's the case, what are you going to do about it? Because if you want to just complain on the internet, you'll get exactly that.
For a passionate young entrepreneur fresh out of college, ready to dive into the real world, what unconventional advice would you offer to help them stand out? Additionally, what common myths about entrepreneurship should they completely ignore?
Keep going. Don't stop. That doesn't mean you're always working on the best idea. You're an entrepreneur. Your business is not your baby. So coming to terms with the fact that maybe you're betting on the wrong horse, meaning you don't have a good company and you got to move on, that's a different story, but it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard a lot. It's okay. Find a way to treat it as challenges, not problems. Find ways to enjoy the grit, enjoy the process, because it's just part of it. And I always remind myself, work like most won't, so you can live like most can't. Work your absolute ass off and the benefits will come.
Erik, as an entrepreneur, maintaining personal health and fitness can often be as crucial as managing a business. Can you share how you integrate fitness and well-being into your busy schedule, and what impact do you feel it has on your effectiveness as a leader?
Yeah, so my wife said something to me years ago now. I was like, God, I haven't had time to work out. She went, you mean you haven't made time? Yeah. And I'm like, yeah. And my wife's awesome, but it was such a God damn it, you're right. There's no avoiding that.
That's a real wisdom, though.
Yeah. No, exactly. So now, 10 a.m. on Mondays, 2 p.m. Tuesday, Thursday, which is in the middle of the day, I work out because that's when I get the best workout. I like the reprieve to take a break, just focus for a second and get back to work. It allows me to roll into Monday. If I am having a stressful time, I can get a little bit of work done in the morning to get ahead of some stuff and then go take a quick breather before really getting into the week. So that's what's worked for me. And then weekends, I try to stay active. But I actually 3 days a week, I take an hour off in the middle of the day and work out. But the thing is, for my work ethic and schedule, I'm going to be answering emails for an hour tonight. So I could have the workout tonight and the emails during the day, or it's just it doesn't matter. So I don't go home at 6 and that's the end of my day either. So I, sort of give myself permission to do that, but that's been 3 years of doing that. And I also this happened the other day. I was talking to a guy I was supposed to meet up with a VC, a venture capitalist. We're supposed to have coffee, and we were talking about working out for snowboard season, which is a ways away, but we're both diehard snowboarders. And I'm like, yeah, I just do the Santa Monica stairs. It's great to get that's a great workout for it. He's like, well, let's skip coffee and go do the stairs. I'm like, let's do it. So like finding other, like when you're changing some of your work, this is the work-life harmony thing that I mean. This is exactly it. I go on snowboard trips with entrepreneurs that we do business together. Go work out with entrepreneurs. Go do things that I want to do, but with people that I can do business with. And that is a part of it too.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Entrepreneurship Unboxed. We hope Erik Huberman's story and insights have sparked new ideas and inspired you to tackle your own entrepreneurial challenges with renewed vigor. Remember, success isn't just about the victories, it's about the lessons learned along the way. Stay connected with us for more raw and insightful conversations with the brightest minds in business. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries, embracing challenges, and unboxing your entrepreneurial potential. I'm AJ signing off.